Welcome back to the KWCH Origins podcast. I'm here with Mayor-elect Lily Wu, familiar face around here, of course. Elected last month, take office next month, right? Just a few weeks, right? Is it January 13th?
Less than 2 weeks away.
There you go. So we're recording this the day after Christmas. How was your Christmas?
It was wonderful. Got to spend it with both my family and my boyfriend's family. So it was just nice and quiet and just relaxing.
We're going to talk about your background, of course. Do you have any traditions that you like to uphold around Christmas? Family traditions, personal traditions, anything like that?
Just having dinner together. I think that's the most special part. Anytime that we have Christmas or any of the holidays, I think it's just nice to remind ourselves that the best gift is being together with the people you love.
So yeah, let's start with your background. Your parents moved from China to Guatemala before you were born. What were those conversations like with them? Have you talked much about why they left, what was going on in China that they felt maybe like they even had to leave?
You know, it's really about opportunities. In China, my parents would more than likely not be where they're at right now in their lives. At one point in their life in Guatemala, they owned their own small business. Then they came to the United States where they both work. My mom is self-employed. My dad is a Chinese kitchen cook. Again, opportunities that are very different than they would have had in China. But really, what made them want to come to America was the opportunities that they could give to their future children. I was not born in China. I was born in Guatemala,
right,
where my parents immigrated from. And that's where Carlos and I were raised. And then my parents all the time had thought about coming to America, but knew that the process was very long, the immigration process. But thankfully, in April of 1993, my family immigrated to the United States here where my late grandfather lived.
What was the process of, why Guatemala? Was it just the opportunities, like you said? Was it a different reason? Why was that kind of the first stop along the way?
Well, they wanted to come to the United States,
right,
but as you know, that process and the immigration process itself is very long. And so they went to another country, a developing country, where they knew that they had at least distant relatives that lived there, and they were able to begin their life. They started a small business. It was a variety store. They sold a little bit of everything from food to clothing. It was just a tiny little, what we call almacén. And it was in Antigua where we were born. And so those opportunities there are what continued to make them want to work harder so that they could come to the United States.
What was that like for you as a Chinese woman growing up in a Hispanic culture? How did you adapt to that?
Well, I was born in Antigua, so what I knew was Spanish, and I knew the culture there. My brother's name is Carlos.
Yes.
So for me, it was just growing up, that was normal. I knew that we were a little bit different. We were not many Chinese people live in Antigua, so we had a small group of Chinese folks that we would gather with. But other than that, I mean, I was immersed in Guatemalan culture. I went to schools there, of course, until I was 8 years old. So I was really immersed in Latino culture, but specifically Guatemalan. Guatemala is mainly celebrating a lot of Catholic traditions. So throughout my childhood, I celebrated Christmas,
right,
I celebrated Easter, and so those were all part of my upbringing. And I think that has always carried on, even when we came to the United States. My family celebrated Christmas, and it's just such a special time. So thanks for reminding me that yesterday was Christmas,
yes,
one of the best holidays of the year, and I
doubt,
love Christmas time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the process of you learning Spanish, or were you learning Chinese languages at that time too? Because you were pretty young. Obviously, I'm sure you grew up speaking, what Chinese language did you speak?
So I speak the dialect of Cantonese,
okay,
which is spoken in the southern areas of China. So my parents would speak to us in Cantonese, but everyone else around our lives in Antigua would be speaking Spanish with us. So I was immersed in both of those languages growing up. But formally, I learned Spanish. My parents didn't have enough time to sit us down and write Chinese and really teach us a formal language in Chinese. So really, my formal language was Spanish. And so I grew up speaking Spanish, being immersed in the culture. up until I was 8 years old when we came here.
So you're obviously very educated. You've experienced a lot. Do you think that started with the process of learning Spanish at a young age and kind of being immersed in those different cultures? Or did you already have that and you were just able to do that because it was natural?
I think it was just the opportunity to be exposed to languages at a young age. I always say that it's important to expose young people under the age of 8 to as many languages as possible, but not just expose them, but really give them the opportunity to be integrated with the language. I was immersed in both Chinese and in Spanish because my parents would speak with us in that language, and then at school we would speak in Spanish. So in order to learn a foreign language, you really have to immerse yourself in the language. It can't just be once a week you learn some Spanish. Yeah. You really have to immerse yourself, get into neighborhoods where they speak Spanish. And so I am a little bit ashamed to say I have lost a lot of my Spanish because I haven't had the opportunity to really be around a lot of Spanish-speaking friends. But that is going to be a goal for 2024, much more Spanish speaking.
Do the Duolingo thing or something like that. So is your brother younger or older than you?
He's a year younger than me.
Okay, so you're about the same age when you came to the United States. Was that a conversation with your parents, or did it just one day you just ended up here in Wichita and you just, woke up one day here?
No. So as I mentioned, my parents left China in 1983. So when we came here, it was nearly 10 years from the time that they had thought about the idea of coming to America and finally landing in Wichita. So in that process, my parents had told us about Grandpa who lived in Wichita. We had visited Wichita before we arrived in 1993. So I had visited in the past. And then our parents reminded us, we're about to move somewhere where you don't know that language, but we're about to move, so be prepared.
Yeah.
And when we came here in April of 1993, I did not speak English. So I still remember how difficult it was to learn a new language yet again, and then really, again, just practice that language and that new culture that I got exposed to.
Yeah, so you didn't speak English. I was caught by when you said your parents said be prepared. They knew they were going to, or they figured probably that they would end up in the United States. In that period where you were in Guatemala, was there any American culture that they wanted to expose you to?
Oh, absolutely. So Antigua is known as one of the best tourist locations in Guatemala. A lot of folks go to Antigua to immerse themselves in Spanish. So I got exposure to a lot of international individuals coming to Antigua. So I was exposed to English. I was exposed to other languages. But while we were in Guatemala, I also took a couple of lessons here and there in English. And again, as I mentioned, you can't learn another language by just doing one lesson a week.
Right.
You have to really immerse yourself in the language. So it wasn't until we came here to the US that I was able to learn the language formally by going to school, but also, that's what inspired my career in TV, right?
Right.
So I watched TV, I watched the local news, which really inspired my career in journalism, but also taught me the language and the culture of Wichita and the United States.
What other ways did you kind of get immersed in American culture? I imagine other TV shows probably helped you learn English. Am I right about that?
Yeah,
you always hear the
TV.
stories. I don't mean to stereotype, but is that part of it?
Yeah, so we did not have cable back in the day. 1993, we had the regular 3 channels plus the public television station. So you would switch around to watch different programs. But another way that I learned English and really immersed myself in Wichita was there were neighbors in our neighborhood that took an interest in this new immigrant family, and they invited us to activities. They invited us to church. And I really believe that that's where my heart has always been, people connecting with one another and seeing that someone's new, they might need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
So bring them along, ask them to come to an event with you, and it's that ask that is always important.
So was it 6th grade when you got here, or 5th, or?
Second.
Second? Man, I was doing terrible math right there. 93?
1993, I was 8 years old, so I only had
Okay.
2 more months
I was
of
like
school
11.
left.
I guess you're a year,
Yeah.
you're
Then
a
I
year too
had
younger than me.
3rd and 4th grade at Ray Woodman Elementary School, and then to Lawrence Elementary School. Then I went to Ray Woodman Elementary School, which was my neighborhood school. That's when I finally graduated from the ESL program.
Okay, and we know, well, we'll talk about you getting your master's degree in Hong Kong, your bachelor's here in Wichita, but when was education kind of first made important to you? Why was that such a thing for you?
It's always been critical in my family. Even when I was young in Guatemala, my parents would make us do our homework and show them that I was doing it correctly. And my mom especially was a stickler for writing cursive well, and so my mom has always been someone that reminds me that education is very important, and that continued on when we came to the United States. But really, when I was 8 and came here and didn't know English, I took it upon myself to say, okay, I don't understand the language. I mentioned this before, but the very first day of school at Lawrence Elementary School, I was bused to that school, and I went home crying to my mom because I didn't understand my teacher, I didn't understand my peers, and I went home crying to her and I begged her, please take us back home. But it was in that moment that Mom reminded us, this is our new home, that I had to grow up. And I had to grow up fast because I knew that I would have to take a leadership role within my own family. And so that's when I made a concerted effort that I was going to learn the language, and I was going to be focused about learning the language. I learned the language by getting one of those Pictionaries. And
Right.
so I knew the word in Spanish, I just didn't know the word in English. So I would write down the word in Spanish and in English.
Wow.
And I kind of self-taught myself in addition to going to school. So I've always been motivated about what my North Star is. And that back then was learn the language. So I knew that I wanted to be the main translator for my family because that's how I could help them.
Yeah.
So I continued working hard on education, and then that continued even to middle school when I met one of my best mentors and a woman that I still call my second mom.
Yeah.
She was the school psychologist at Truesdell, and she was testing me for the gifted program. So I had my homework for my grade, and I always asked for more. I wanted more enrichment material. And so she tested me for the gifted program, and then she took me under her wing, me and 2 other young ladies, and she knew that if our goal was to get a better education for our families, to improve the way of life that our family knew, that we would have to excel in school, in high school, and then in college. And so Stephanie was the one that introduced us to
Stephanie
the
Sorensen, right?
Stephanie Sorensen
Yeah.
introduced us to the International Baccalaureate program. And it was because of her that the trajectory of my life changed forever, because through Wichita Public Schools, you get lots of different choices. And one of those choices is this really great college prep course and program called the IB program.
Do you I hate the word overachiever because I think you achieve what you're going to achieve, right? You work hard for it. But is there any part of you that feels like that just because you've done so much? You came here to Wichita and you were immediately, maybe not immediately, but obviously very well educated. You got into the IB program. Is that a word that resonates with you at all?
Overachievement, not so much. I'm just a hard worker.
Yeah.
I know that if I don't know something, I will work hard to get to know the topic, get to learn it. I've always been someone that puts my head down and tries to learn the subject that I don't understand. And I will spend the extra time to be the best at whatever that task is supposed to be. And so I'll continue to improve. And I believe that it's self-improvement that is really part of my nature. So not necessarily overachievement, but just I know that I'm always going to be a work in progress. All of us are works in progress. And so continue to know that you can always work on yourself and get to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So by the time you're through with high school, you end up going to Wichita State. Was that because Wichita was familiar? Did you grow to like Wichita? What was your attitude toward Wichita, I guess about 6 or 7 years in there?
Sure.
Maybe
so,
more, 10?
I went to
Still bad at
East
math.
High. No, you're good. So I went to East High.
Yeah.
And at East, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures. East High is one of the most diverse schools in the state of Kansas. And so at East High, I not only was involved on campus, but I was also involved outside of the walls of East. I was involved through organizations like Diversity Kansas, Exploration Place. And so all of my exposure to Wichita was both in the school and out of school environment.
Right.
And so that helped me see Wichita in many different, more of a, I guess, a diverse look at my own city. And a lot of IB kids often say, oh, I want to get out of Wichita. And I kind of fell into that because that's what I had heard.
Right.
But then I realized college is a lot of money. You have to really either invest into a pot of money that eventually will be for college, or you have to get scholarships. And I can tell you from an immigrant family that my parents were just trying to make sure that we had a good roof over our heads, food on the table, that they just wanted us to do well in school. So they said, okay, there are scholarships out there. Can you try to compete for some of those? And I was just so grateful because my parents weren't able to save money for college, that I was able to compete for the Gore Scholarship. And so it was through my involvement around Wichita that I learned about that opportunity and then got to compete for the Gore Scholarship. And again, when you're at East, you think that you want to go somewhere else, but then reality sets in. You really have to realize that college is not for everyone, and that's okay.
Right.
And for me, it was, okay, well, college is part of my game plan. So how am I going to get there? Am I going to get loans? Am I going to go get scholarships? And I competed for the Gore and was really fortunate to be one of the 2 Gore Scholars in 2003 and was able to get my college paid for. And so I was able to go to WSU for 4 years and graduated with 2 degrees.
Were you at the Elliott School?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was at 2
the same
schools.
time as I was. I never saw you. Or maybe I did.
Well, I was taking 21 to 24 hours.
I was taking about 0 to 3. So.
Well, because I had to jump back and forth from the communication school to the business school. So I was always around campus, but really moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
I wanted to graduate with 2 degrees. When I was in high school, I found my passion in business. And so I graduated with an international business degree. But again, when I was 8 years old, I said I wanted to become one of those out of classroom teachers. So I pursued that communications route as well. And so I graduated with an integrated marketing communication degree. So both of those degrees have been part of who I am all this time. I just got to take one route first, and that was my journalism route.
Yeah, and then you go to the University of Hong Kong, right, for your master's degree in journalism. That's an English-speaking institution, right, for the most part. So what was that like?
So when I graduated, right before I graduated from WSU, I was exposed to a lot of business organizations because of my business degree. And one of those organizations that I had had exposure to even prior in high school was Rotary. And it was through Rotary that I learned that they had this scholarship for postgraduate studies, and the Gore Scholarship allowed me the opportunity to go to the University of Hong Kong and pursue my master's in journalism. So I left in 2007, went to Hong Kong, was immersed in Asia for the first time, which a lot of folks, when they ask me, where are you from? I love that question, actually. We can talk about that at another time. But that was my first time ever living in Asia.
Yeah.
And so living in Hong Kong, which is one of the most international cities in the world, was the best experience in my 20s. And not only that, I had the opportunity to be an ambassador for the city of Wichita.
Did you feel like that was your focus? I'm definitely going into television, compared to integrated marketing, or how much did those 2, degrees, I guess, help you toward television?
So in the back of my head, I still wanted to do what I dreamt about as an 8-year-old. And I said, I want to be like, again, those reporters and those anchors that I saw as an 8-year-old girl. And so that was always in the back of my head. But when I went to the University of Hong Kong, it really focused my efforts towards journalism. The integrated marketing communications degree is a little bit of everything, right? It's a little bit of marketing, it's a little bit of direct communication.
Right.
And so that, again, focused my efforts towards journalism. And then I realized I really do want to pursue this. I had an internship at CNN. And that exposed me to the producer side of things. And I just saw how TV news was just so powerful in helping shape narratives and helping people understand topics that continued to inspire me to work towards journalism. And when I came back from Hong Kong, I gave presentations at Rotary clubs. I gave them presentations about my study abroad, and then eventually, there was someone in the audience by the name of Larry Hatterberg who was listening to my presentation, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come to his station back then and take a tour?" And I said, "Sure." And I took a tour. Little did I know it was an informal job interview.
Wow.
And by the end of that tour, they offered me a job.
Naturally. You were a natural. I don't mean to like gloss over your years in television, but I think the hallmark of them is your involvement in the community and the way, you like you said, you went around to different organizations, you did a lot of different things. That's something that came from your youth, right? You started that when you were just a kid. So how did that kind of carry over, and why was that important to you?
Giving back to my community has always been part of who I am, and I think it was really harnessed when I was at East High. When we were in the IB program, they really reminded us that we're not just citizens of Wichita, but we're world citizens. We're part of this greater world that we live in together. And so IB taught me that there's always a responsibility of giving back and making sure that you help the community that you live in. And so when I was a freshman at East, that's when I started volunteering. I started volunteering at Exploration Place, and which I love now, so many 20 plus years later, getting to see how great it's now having a new master plan for that building. But when I was one of the first volunteers for EP, I just enjoyed getting to know people that were visiting Wichita or even Wichitans.
Yeah.
And so it always gave me an opportunity to appreciate Wichita. And I think we need to appreciate where we come from more, but also make investments into how to make our communities a little bit of a better place for you and me to live in.
You were involved in pageants quite a bit too. Tell me about that.
Yes.
If you want to.
Sure. I did compete in pageants when I was growing up. In Guatemala, it is pageantry in Latin American culture is very big. And so I remember watching the Miss Universe competition every year. I thought it was so beautiful to bring together women of all ethnic backgrounds representing their ethnic heritage and the country that they live in, and then just the beautiful national attire that they would bring to the Parade of Nations. And I just thought that was so beautiful to see. So that kind of had always been in the back of my head. It was not until I was a teenager that someone pursued me and said, "Hey, would you like to compete in a small little pageant?" And I said, "Okay, sure. Well, you're going to have to raise the entry fee." So I went door to door in my neighborhood and asked, "Would you donate $5? Would you donate $10?" And so that's how I paid for my very first entry fee to compete in a pageant. And then eventually I was able to compete once a year. My mom was not into pageants. She thought that I needed to focus again on my education. But then I reminded her that pageants equal scholarships.
Yeah.
And so she finally got around and said, "Okay, fine. If they're for scholarships and you win scholarships," and Mom would let me compete, but I would again have to raise my own entry fees to compete. Eventually, I was able to win my very first title when I was 18 years old. I won the Miss Teen Kansas International title, and it was there that I really understood what pageants are all about. Pageantry is an opportunity for young women to have a platform to voice into the community. This is what I care about, and this is how I'm going to make a mark in our community to help it be better. And for me, it was celebrating cultural diversity.
Yeah.
I wanted people to embrace their ethnic backgrounds, whether it's Irish, Nigerian, Chinese. I want you to celebrate your ethnic background and then share it with our community, because I think that it's those beautiful ethnic backgrounds that we have in the United States that make us all individuals, and we should celebrate those differences while also reminding ourselves we're all part of Wichita together.
So just a couple more questions and I'll fast forward to now. I live in a bubble. I'm not like you. I don't go out and do a whole lot of things, and I'm not very seen, but it's interesting to me that someone I know, even if it's you, who is known in the community and gets to all those events, is becoming mayor. So was there a person in your life that convinced you, or maybe you didn't even need convincing, that you can do this, you can be the mayor, you can run for political office? Was there someone who encouraged you maybe more than others?
There was not one encourager. I can tell you that this whole community encouraged me, because I knew that as a reporter, whether at this station or the other, what I loved most was telling the positive things that were happening in our community. And there's a lot of good that's happening in Wichita. But oftentimes we don't have enough time to share that good news. And so it was this community that kept saying, I'm hungry for the good. I'm hungry for the wins of our community, that made me step up and say, okay, well, I'm able to share the good and the wins in our community while also tackling the issues that we have and the challenges. But we have to know that there are good things also happening in Wichita. And so I believe that it was Wichita who pushed me forward into this role. And now I just want to help lead together with this community.
So final question, what do you do now between now and the few weeks until you take office? What is your schedule? What are your plans? You going to get some rest, I hope?
Oh, no. I have plenty of meetings, but it's okay. I love getting to know the 3,000 plus employees of the city of Wichita. In itself, it's its own community, right? The city of Wichita employees. And so I'm getting to know each of the departments, getting tours around those departments. So that's the onboarding process. Myself, new council member J.V. Johnson, and new council member Dalton Glasscock, the three of us have been onboarding together, which has been great because we've been seeing all these departments together. But we're also getting to understand the challenges. We're about to have a looming budget deficit in 2025. So I have to prepare the community to understand we're going to have some tough decisions to make. And so I want more involvement from the community to say, these are the things we really care about. But at the same time, there's plenty of good that we can also share. And there are plenty of things that are happening in Wichita, like the new biomedical center that's going to break ground next year. That's exciting, and it's going to be pivotal for our community to move forward. So I want more folks to understand the good and also the challenges, but come together at the same table to work together on those issues.
Absolutely. So just a few weeks until you take office, the mayor-elect Lily Wu, a familiar face around Channel 12, of course, as I mentioned. Thanks, Lily, for stopping by today.
Thanks, Jeff.